If you're an investor into companies that run on the cloud, you know how expensive this can be. It erodes your returns and robs you of working capital. Well, not anymore. My next guest has spent her career on helping private equity and venture capital investors to reduce costs and maximize the returns in their portcos so that you too can enjoy your pursuit of making billions. Here we go. Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have my dear friend, Claire Milligan. Claire is the CEO at Aimably, a software company that helps venture capitalists to reduce the cloud costs of their portfolio companies. So what does that mean? Well, it means that Claire and her company at Aimably help venture capitalists and fund managers to enhance their return on investment while reducing wasteful costs for any company they invest in that runs on the cloud. So Claire, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I love the community you've built and how people are so focused on just not only returns, but also how to behave and be great in society. So I think you're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, thank you. And we've been fortunate enough to be in the top 2% in the world, and it's all because of amazing guests like you. I want to jump right into things. You've been an expert, you've been an operator in private equity. What advice can you give to private equity venture capitalists on achieving just the best possible outcome for their investments?
I think the most important thing to remember is that you wouldn't have bought this company or invested so heavily in this company if you felt like it would be successful without your investment. So in order to create results, you've got to kind of think of it like a puzzle being put together to generate a really interesting combination of changes. So mastering the industry as a fund manager seems a little kind of funny because you're in charge of the money and you've got operators inside. The operators need to know your advice to them makes sense for their industry. So number one, I'd say is mastering the industry. And then number two is to think about cash. A lot of times with the moment we invest, we talk about like, oh, we got all this money, we can buy whatever we want. But conserving it and placing it in really specific investment directions can create this step change that you're hoping to do. And then the third piece that I just want to kind of highlight is that a clear vision for the future is so important in communicating to the teams. So we talk about like how a business is positioned. And in private equity, oftentimes it's through roll-ups. You're going to have an acquisition over here and an acquisition over there, and those people are going to come together and start working together. Well, it's up to you as a leader, as a fund manager above all of this, to consider what you want to have come out of these different businesses that are coming together. And I'll give you an example. I was working at a private equity owned business, and I was in charge of a line of business that had previously been a growth business. And I was asked to turn it into cash cow. That direction was super clear for me. And I really appreciated it and established a really great relationship with the fund manager at the time. And then in order to make good on that request to me, we went ahead and made a ton of changes, raised prices, cut costs, did all kinds of really cool things that to change the strategy and structure of that business that would have been harder if there was like this kind of behind the scenes kind of subtle communication, maybe she'll make the right decisions piece there. So piecing the puzzle together of where you want to go and then also working with your operators to get there is just the right move, in my opinion.
Wow, that's absolutely brilliant. So maybe we'll walk through. So this is really good. And what Claire brings to the table is not only an expertise in private equity, but your expertise in Aimably and reducing cloud costs, which ultimately benefits everybody, really. Reducing costs is the name of the game. I'm a recovering CFO, so it's a nasty habit that we do as we try to cut costs. Sometimes we say cut fat without cutting muscle or bone. And so speaking of cutting fat and really just reducing the unnecessary waste in a lot of your operations, maybe you can help us understand, like just point blank, what does Aimably do and why can't fund managers live without you?
Well, we make sure that fund managers deliver shareholder value and conserve capital for their businesses that run in the cloud. We find and reduce those hidden costs, the ones that are the fat, and we give opportunities for great returns.
Brilliant. That sounds awesome. But what exactly does that mean? Maybe we can unpack that a little bit more and just understand, maybe a level 2 explanation on that. And let's dive into that.
Yeah, we have two lines of business. The first one is cost savings and the second one is due diligence support. When it comes to cost savings, we are talking about how should a company leanly operate on the cloud. don't leave the water running, don't have these extra systems in test just floating out there. All of those details are incredibly difficult to know and to model and to plan for. And it's a complete black box to CFOs and even further away to fund managers. So to get a vision into what is our state of the cloud and where are we going and what kind of fat can be released is just such an opportunity that I wish I had when I was doing that change that I was talking about. Because think about it, if you can release the payment for a server for a month instead of letting go of a person, that's just an incredible value. Tying into that, our due diligence offering gives you a snapshot, like a 24-hour snapshot. We will do it for you in 24 hours. So you can see exactly how the cloud is operating in that business, where they're spending, the maturity that they have, the initial like dig here questions you should be asking. That gives you the opportunity to say, how much can we take in terms of debt? How much can we pay back? Is there an opportunity for more cash out of these savings that could give us an edge in our offer over somebody else's? Essentially, not only do we understand savings for the cloud, but we understand investment strategy, and we're here to help you.
Yeah, I love that. And with the cost savings, do you have a range on what some investors can expect?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've never found less than 20% savings. A job we just finished this week, we found 88%, and our running average right now is just south of 45.
Wow. So a 45% cost savings on any line item, especially as significant as cloud costs, absolutely phenomenal. That is, I could see how private equity firms definitely love you.
Yeah. And at technology businesses, it's the second biggest line item to personnel. So this is critical.
This is absolutely critical. And, you and I, we've spoken, we've gotten to know each other for a little bit here. And, you've mentioned something, and I'd love for you to speak on this, is you said, often there's this perception that cloud costs are what they are. And obviously you have a whole business that challenges that notion. How do you negotiate some of these things? What are some of the areas that maybe people should look out for that you can help them specialize in? Because cloud cost is very nebulous, but I've never heard of that. I am definitely, admittedly, one of those people who just thought cloud costs are what they are. And then you say, well, no, not exactly. Not when you're working with us. What does that entail?
Well, think about this conceptually from the standpoint of, in a data center, you own these servers, you run the data center. It is a capital expenditure. It's there. It's done. No change. You move to the cloud and the offering is positioned as you only pay for what you use, which is a great concept. Except a lot of companies now are running those servers continuously that they would have run in the data center on the cloud. And unfortunately, not taking advantage of the fact that these things can instantly turn on and off and that you can structure your business so that you're only paying for what you use. The greatest savings across the board for any company is to take a specific service they're already using in the cloud and structure it so that it will expand and contract with load. So more customers sign on, the server gets bigger. More customers sign on, multiple servers get added. Same thing with these cool technologies like caching and search and structured search and AI technologies and all of these things. They all have aspects where they expand and contract. And it's not that hard to do that. And that's the really clear area where to go. But also you're inheriting these engineering teams that know what they know and did it the way they did it. So you have to have somebody come in that can give them a graceful exit to say, here you are, here's the tools that you need to make you look like a rock star and you can get it done. And all of a sudden they've leveled up. And now when they get their next job, they have a much broader range of capabilities themselves as well.
Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, we must be friends. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification button. Now, let's get back to the show.
Brilliant. Wow. So, when people are starting out in this industry, you've been a beginner before, I've been a beginner before, and some people listening right now, whether they're an emerging fund manager or starting their own cloud-based business, either way, especially private equity and venture capital, what advice can you give to beginners on just what are some things you recommend that they need to look out for?
So my perspective comes from having been an operator under the ownership of private equity. And I know your audience is all about the fund managers. So my perspective on this is going to be to try to turn around the mirror a little bit and to say, look, we all know, or maybe we don't, but I assert that your success lives and dies by the operating model. And by that, I mean the financial statements you build in order to envision this company in its new iteration and structure once you've done the work of transforming it. And so there's a couple of pieces I just really want to drive home about how you can make that operating model successful. The first one is, I think you need to build it before you buy. A lot of times there's ideas and cool things, but also the race to win against the other folks that are out there, especially as emerging, because you're going to be competing against the big guys sometimes. So you have to make your offer better. But if you don't have a plan of where you're going to go, you lose all this time to make that investment good. So tacking on to that, you can easily go, okay, well, I don't need to go that far. I'll just use some benchmarks. I'll build this new forward-looking P&L based on some benchmarks. We're going to be good. No problem, Claire. I don't really have to do that. Well, you wouldn't buy the business to keep running it exactly the way it ran before. There's no point. It's not worth your extra capital that you've put into there. So be very selective about those benchmarks that you use. I'm not saying don't use them, but find the companies that have industries that are similar, that have success stories based on where you are now and where you're headed, and then structure your P&L model and the larger operating model to match that. Then once you've got it, here's my third point, you have to communicate it. There's this belief that if I've got this vision that this company is going to lose all its costs and increase all its revenue, I couldn't possibly tell my CTO at this company because he can't know that he's going to lose his job or even his team, and there's an incredible amount of inertia in these companies. When they receive a new round of investment, they're super excited. They think what they did was amazing and they should keep on doing it. So it needs an incredible amount of communication to say, you guys did great. You were headed in this direction. Like my previous example, you were growing this business at all costs, and now we're turning around and this is going to be a cash cow so that you can support this other line of business. Or, hey, this tiny little piece of software that's in the corner of your product portfolio, we think it's great and it's going to drive these other things. So, lean into that. All of that communication is required. You have start with the fund, move to the operators next, and just speak it as loudly as possible. If it doesn't fit with how an executive is planning how they fit into the business, that's fine. They can leave. And that's okay, because you don't want to be fighting this person for years, hoping that they get your insinuations of what you want out of the business. So be transparent.
I love it. Part of this show, as we round third base and take it home, to use a baseball analogy, I'm just curious if you have any competitive advantages that you can leave behind. So just summarize all of your experience. What's some of the most important things that you can advise our listeners today?
I cannot underscore more the importance of authenticity. Part of that is going out and communicating to everyone. And you have to be able to communicate it with your authentic self. I often am a mentor of rising executives. And there's one woman that stands out in my mind that I always think of when I talk about authenticity. I became friends with her outside of work. And in work, she presented in this very professional way, beautiful hair, beautiful makeup, all the right clothes. She was in sales. It was a great fit. Outside of work, she had her hoops, she had her braids, she had her long nails. She was an awesome and very opinionated and wonderful woman. And she had changed herself in the professional world so as not to get called out as the angry Black woman. And unfortunately, when she had an opinion, then people started falling into those tropes. So my belief is that part of authenticity is to say, what am I going to get called out for? What do I think the traps are that I might fall into, that people might judge me for? And let everyone see them ahead of time. Then they're not the traps. Then they're not the things that people are going to catch you on. And it will become as no surprise that this woman was loud and had an opinion, because she's a rock star and we hired her for a reason. So authenticity is not just like, hey, be kind, be a good human, but it's like a proactive decision to reveal parts of yourself more than you may necessarily in order to pave the way for your success.
Brilliant. So as we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to say? Any closing remarks or ways people can reach out to you to connect with you?
Okay. So for this podcast, I did something that I don't necessarily always do. We have a white paper that my team came up with that is all about creating value in the cloud. It is literally our playbook to how we reduce cloud costs at private equity owned businesses. And it's available at aimably.com, which is AIMABLY.com. And it's /making billions. You do that, it's straight to that white paper, and you can follow all of our tricks on your own. You don't even need to talk to us, but if you need some advice, just give me a call.
All right, brilliant. So we've got a gift. This is awesome. So please reach out to that website that we flashed across your screen here, and we'll be able to help you out. So just to summarize everything that Claire mentioned on that advice, building the P&L based on benchmarks can sometimes be a mistake, right? Business as usual. So don't let business as usual push you into you being that way. Don't be afraid to innovate and work with people like Claire to help you on that rise. The second thing you mentioned is build your operating model before you buy. And then number 3 is once you buy a company, if you're in private equity or venture capital, communicate that operating model up and down the chain. And then, of course, my favorite, number 4, be authentic, be yourself, and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.